between 7 to 10%. That is the share of ship from store orders that store staff are quietly canceling. Not because the inventory is missing, but because they would rather hold it for a walk-in. And it is not a technology failure. That is not a last mile problem. That is a store associate making a completely rational decision inside a broken incentive structure. And it may be the most honest summary of where omnichannel actually stands right now. Whether this is your first episode or you've been with us since the beginning, welcome to the IADS Retail Park. I'm Maya, and joining me today is Sylvan, Managing Director of IADS and the author of this week's exclusive, The Next Chapter of Omnichannel, From Integration to Reinvention. What makes his framing different is that he is not asking how to fine-tune the omnichannel model. He is asking whether it was assembled correctly in the first place. Sylvan, it's good to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Maya. I'm happy to be here and to discuss this with you and our listeners today. So that framing you mentioned is quite deliberate. Now, the diagnostic in this piece is not about technology maturity or channel connectivity. It is about financial architecture. And once you accept that the architecture is the problem, the list of things that actually need to change gets considerably longer than most transformation roadmaps suggest.
Sounds like the perfect place for us to kick things off, so let's start there. Department stores have been running two business models simultaneously for 15 plus years, one built on real estate and people, the other requiring heavy investment in systems, fulfillment, and digital marketing. What has kept that structure intact for so long?
The persistence is structural rather than strategic. Most leadership teams understand the problem clearly. What they have not changed is the internal financial model, and that model is working actively against the solution. When a store director runs a separate P&L, every ship from store order is a cost absorbed locally and a sale attributed elsewhere. The KPI penalizes the behavior you are trying to encourage. So you end up with two P&Ls, two performance conversations, two definitions of what good looks like. The brand is shared, the customer is shared. However, the accountability structure is not.
And that accountability gap is precisely where that 7 to 10% number lives. The store associate is not making a bad decision. They are making the most rational decision available within the system they are being measured on, which means the fix is not better training or better processes. It is a different structure altogether.
Yes, Maya, that's a great point. And this is why technology investment alone does not move it. I have spoken with teams who have deployed unified inventory visibility, real-time fulfillment routing, full omnichannel platforms, and the cancellation rate barely shifts because the human incentive system underneath has not changed. The store manager is still evaluated on flow sales. When peak trading arrives, ship from store gets quietly deprioritized. The 7 to 10% figure is the distance between the omnichannel strategy on the slide deck and the actual behavior on the shop floor. That gap is financial, not operational.
So let's go to the cases where it has been closed, because those are the ones that reveal what actually had to change. Falabella is the example that stayed with me from the piece. 50% of online orders collected in store and a 16% gross sales uplift from those visits.
Falabella is instructive because the collection moment was treated as a commercial event rather than a logistics handoff. The customer arrives to collect, a proportion browses, a proportion adds to the basket. That 16% uplift is the commercial return on making the store genuinely central to the fulfillment journey, not a fallback option. And then at the other end of the investment scale, Target, $3 billion committed to reinventing the store as a fulfillment node, with 95% of online orders now fulfilled through physical locations. That shouldn't be considered as an omnichannel pilot, but rather as the operating model. A quick note here though, Maya. Some of the data behind these cases traces back to the 2021 IADS Academy research. The directional findings hold, but the absolute numbers will have evolved since then.
Thanks for bringing that up, Sylvan. It's a fair caveat and worth flagging. Even directionally, the target figure reframes what the physical network is actually for. It stops being primarily a sales floor and becomes the fulfillment infrastructure, with a sales floor attached. The model you propose to close the P&L gap is the omni-cluster, reorganizing the business around the customer rather than the channel. Can you walk us through what that actually requires?
The omni-cluster is a reorientation of the unit of analysis. Instead of grouping revenues, costs, and performance data by channel, online here, store there, you group them by customer. That customer's total spend across every touchpoint, their cost to serve, their data footprint, and their lifetime value. That becomes the entity being managed. What that does operationally is dissolve the internal competition between channels. They are no longer competing for attribution. They are both credited for the same customer relationship. The data architecture required to support this is not a separate workstream. It is the foundation the model rests on. And once you have built it, you cannot separate the parts back out again. It is a real commitment, not to be confused with a configuration.
Now, that reframe matters, Sylvan, because omnichannel as a word still implies the channel is the organizing principle. You are just connecting them better. The cluster model says the channel is operationally irrelevant. What matters is the customer relationship across all of it, which pulls directly into the store format question and a distinction in the exclusive that I think gets consistently underweighted in the industry conversation.
The evidence is clear, and the gap between formats is large. Experience-centric stores, your full-range flagship, genuine dwell time services, events, real category depth, generate a 27.5% long-term revenue uplift relative to baseline. Small format convenience locations, by contrast, show cannibalization without compensating gains. They pull customers away from existing touchpoints without adding net value to the relationship. For retailers who have been rolling out smaller urban formats as an omnichannel convenience play, that is a challenging finding. And within the experience store, you have the category dimension. Destination categories, the ones customers specifically travel for, where the retailer has genuine authority, deliver a 23.6 percentage point increase in net revenue uplift. The assortment decision is a revenue decision. The question is not how much floor space you have. It is whether you have genuine authority in the categories that fill it.
23.6% on destination categories. That should be anchoring every store portfolio review happening right now. Not aggregate footfall, not average transaction value, but where you have genuine category authority and whether the format is built to support it. The final stage in the exclusive is what you call the ecosystem stage, and I want to make sure we reach it because that is where the argument goes furthest beyond the current industry debate.
The ecosystem stage is where the data that omnichannel infrastructure generates becomes a competitive asset in its own right, not just an operational input. You have Adidas using reward-based routing to direct orders towards stores with strong compliance and fulfillment performance, turning a logistics mechanic into a performance incentive. Kublu has optimized click-and-collect placement to the point where physical location within the store directly affects cross-sell outcomes. Holland and Barrett is using market-specific nudges to shift channel behavior. In the UK, the click-and-collect prompt leads with free. In the Netherlands, the lead message is sustainability. Swatch uses inventory-aware reservation rules to remove the option before no-show rates can damage stock availability. What these retailers share is that they are not using omnichannel infrastructure only to serve the current transaction. They are using the intelligence it generates to shape customer behavior, product development, and commercial relationships over time. For department stores, which sit at the intersection of thousands of brands and millions of customer interactions, that data capability is a largely untapped strategic asset. The question is how quickly it can be built and who owns it when it is.
And that is the real distance this piece covers between connected channels and a business that uses the intelligence those channels generate to operate differently. Most of the industry is still fighting the P&L structure. The ecosystem stage is already a live competitive reality for the retailers who have resolved it. The complete exclusive, the full mechanics of the omni-cluster model, the store format evidence, the category strategy framework is on our Substack at IADS Exclusive Insights. There is so much more analytical depth in the written piece than we had time for today.
Thanks, Maya. It's definitely worth reading the article in full, especially the sections on commercial architecture and what the transition toward the cluster model actually requires from an organizational standpoint.
And we are stopping here for this episode, folks. As always, Sylvan's exclusive can be found on our Substack. You can also find the link in the episode description. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn at International Association of Department Stores and visit our website for more insights and updates. We'll catch you on the next episode. This podcast uses AI cloned voices created with human oversight to ensure quality and accuracy.